Alright, what's good, Slap City? I wanted to make a video to tie myself over because my breakdown of the Crazy Hawaiian verse dumpling is in copyright dispute right now. If you subscribe to my page or follow me on Instagram, you'll know that one of my breakdowns got flagged for copyright and I ended up having to dispute it, but UFC ended up clearing it, so it's up, and so I expect that to happen with this one as well. It's just going to take a couple days, so I expect to have that one up in the next 2 days, but wanted to at least drop something in the meantime. So today I'm going to go over a topic that I speak on a lot, but is still drastically not talked about enough in Power Slap, and that's stage presence. So stage presence, I pretty much coined this term. I'm starting to hear people talk about it more and more. Basically, it's just a blanket term that covers a wide range of actions and body language that you need during a fight to win a decision in Power Slap. And so to understand stage presence, you really kind of have to understand the different segments of it and then why it's important. So when a Power Slap match goes to a decision, the judges are instructed to judge the fight based on two specific criteria. So there's two. So number one is the damage and effectiveness of the striker, and number two is the reaction and recovery of the defender. So basically what that means is half of how you're judged is on your slap and the effectiveness and the damage that you do to your opponent on your slap, and then the other half is your reaction and recovery time when you get slapped. And there's a common misconception in this because one would think that the slap would carry more weight than the reaction, but it's actually not the case. It's actually 50-50 and no criteria is weighed more than the other, if you can believe it. I mean, to me, the reaction and recovery should be like a tiebreaker. At the end of the day, it's called Power Slap, not Power Recovery. So yeah, I think it's a little dumb how they do that, but nonetheless, that is the main criteria for how you judge a fight. So when you're game planning for a fight, you need to take this into account because how you act up there is going to affect your ability to win a decision. It just is. A great example of this on Power Slap 9 was James Siegman. So he was in a very close fight with Nate Bernard, and a lot of people that I've talked to thought that Nate won based on the slaps that he was dishing out and the damage that they were doing. But Siegman ended up actually winning the decision. And if you watch my breakdown for that fight, you'll see that I think that a big reason why that was because of how he was playing the slaps off and his stage presence. And even further, on Power Slap 10, we have some of the best in the business when it comes to stage presence and playing off the slaps. So there really couldn't be a better time to talk about it. I think that, I'm calling it right now, I think that there will be at least 3 matches on Power Slap 10 that come down to stage presence as far as who gets the nod. So let's go into a little bit of like the segments of stage presence. So number one, obviously, and the most important, as I mentioned, is the reactions and recovery. Now that's the biggest piece of stage presence. So this includes hand motions, screaming, telling your opponent that, that slap was nothing, talking shit once you get hit. So that's the main piece of stage presence, the reactions and the recovery. But there are others that make a difference. You have to remember that these judges are human, just like you and I. To think that they're able to completely unsee 6 minutes of you when you're walking out, when you're getting introduced, when you're waiting to get slapped, when you're waiting to give a slap. These things, if you and I are noticing it watching, do you think that the judges aren't? Of course they are. Of course they are. So to me, stage presence starts the second you leave your locker room. Because what happens when you're walking out, the cameras are on you. And those cameras project on the big screen in the arena. And guess who's sitting in the arena? The judges. So the second you leave your locker room, it is lights, camera, action. Now, I don't want people to misinterpret this from me telling anybody to be who they're not, because that can come off as ungenuine, but you should be tailoring your personality to be able to utilize these moments to give yourself an advantage against your opponent. So picture yourself as the judge, right? You're judging a fight. You're watching the first guy walk out. Looks very serious, doesn't really look too excited, almost scared, and just kind of silent, hard to read, right? Then you watch their opponent come out second, and they're hopping around, they're screaming, they look like there's nowhere else on earth they'd rather be. If you think that that's not going to subconsciously play a little bit of a factor in your brain when you're judging each round, you're crazy. It just does, man. It just does. At the end of the day, these judges are human just like you and I. And so, yeah, that's a big part of stage presence that I think that people underestimate. Now, again, I'm not telling you to be anybody that you're not, but I mean, when you're walking out, what song are you picking? Are you bopping your head? Are you looking like you're happy to be there? Do you look like you want to be there? Do you look like you don't want to be there? I mean, these things matter, and they matter more than people think, and no one really talks about this that much. And so although I mention it all the time, and subscribers will know this, I mean, at the end of the day, there are new listeners coming to the channel, so I do want to make sure that I'm continuing to preach the topic because it's important. So you'll notice that I have some slides going. There's some people on the Power Slap roster that just do it way better than others, and a few of them are actually fighting on Power Slap 10. Like in the main event, you got DeBell versus Dorian Perez, and in my opinion, Dorian Perez's stage presence is way up there in Power Slap. The guy owns the stage. There's not a slap that he's ever taken where he hasn't talking shit or shaking his head or anything like that. So he's a great example. In that fight, in my opinion, I think that fight goes to a decision. So I haven't made official picks for this yet, but when you break down that fight and you think that both guys can eat each other's slaps, there's a big chance that that could come down to stage presence. So another great example on that card, the welterweight fight, the title fight between Manny Muniz and the current champ, Anthony Blackburn. Part of the reason why Blackburn won that fight, that first title match against Muniz, is because of his stage presence. Blackburn is very good at playing slaps off. He just is. And so anybody out there that's looking for examples of it, that's a great one to go watch. From Power Slap 8, Muniz versus Blackburn. Watch that fight. It was a super close fight, and I think that Manny won the last 2 rounds, but Blackburn won the first 3, and it wasn't all because of the slaps, let me tell you. So, yeah, that's another good example. Now, obviously, if you're just going to knock your opponent out and it's not going to see the judges, then it doesn't really matter, okay? The only way it would really matter, even if you knock your opponent out, is to get in your opponent's head. I mean, that's another facet that, like, I don't even really factor in, is that when you look like you want to be there, your opponent is seeing that. You know, your opponent does not want to see you happy to be there and happy to go. They want to see you scared and not wanting to be there. That's what they want to see. So just as much as you're getting in the judge's head, you can be getting in your opponent's head as well. So some other people that are really good at it. So you'll see in the slideshow, I have Alan Klingbeil. He's always slamming the stick off the table and saying, that was nothing, that was nothing. Another person that's good at it, we got Brandon Bordeaux on there. He's very good at playing slaps off. If you go back and watch his fight at Power Slap 8, he was just consistently screaming in Brandon's face after he was getting slapped. Obviously, you got Turp Daddy Slim, Austin Turpin, probably top 3, in my opinion, in Power Slap as far as stage presence goes. The guy absolutely owns the stage at every moment. He's up there. But, I mean, the GOAT, in my opinion, as far as stage presence, has to be the Crazy Hawaiian. My breakdown for that fight isn't up yet, but you'll see when you watch it that I think that part of the reason why he was able to squeak out a draw was, in fact, his stage presence. No one does it better than him. I mean, when he gets slapped, he's walking around the edge of the stage, chirping the crowd. And if you ever notice why people do that, so they actually spread the judges out. So the judges don't sit right next to each other. And the reason that is because they don't want each other to be influenced by the other. You know, so if one guy gets slapped and one judge looks at the other judge and the other judge is like, damn, then that could influence their decision. So they spread them out. So that's why when the ref takes a point, he'll like go 1 point and he'll face one way, then he'll turn the other way, then he'll turn the other way. And so they're all spread out. So what he's doing is he's addressing each judge individually because they're not sitting right next to each other. And that's common and that's good. But when you notice like the Crazy Hawaiian, when he's walking around the stage, getting the crowd involved, he's also doing that to the judges. So yeah, it's a very important topic that I don't think is spoken about enough, but I'm hearing a lot of strikers in interviews starting to pay attention to this. And I mean, I'm not going to take credit, but real ones know. But anyway, in my opinion, the Crazy Hawaiian has the best stage presence of all time in Power Slap. And I don't know that we'll ever see anybody like him again in that regard. And yeah, so once that breakdown drops, you got to watch that because I show some video examples of that. But you'll see, like, as we go through the slideshow, like Bordeaux, this is a great shot mid-scream right after he got slapped. Like, are you telling me that the judges don't see that and don't take that into account? You're nuts. You're nuts. Very similar photo with Turpin on the cover right after he got slapped, screaming in his face. So next time you're watching Power Slap, pay attention to that. Pay attention to how they're reacting in the round. If the slaps are close, who played it off better? Because that is what the judges are thinking. And if you're betting on Power Slap, then that's something to take into consideration too. Again, a great example. I mean, I haven't made any pick yet, but Power Slap 10, the main event, DeBell versus Perez. If that goes all 5 rounds, stage presence is going to win somebody the fight, I think, in my opinion at least. So yeah, from a betting standpoint, when you're trying to break down a fight and figure out who wins, you have to be taking that into consideration if it goes the entire way. And one thing I wanted to throw in there too, also that I've told some people, but I've never really said publicly in a video, is you really need to be taking advantage of the camera time that you get, specifically right after you slap and when you slap. So anybody that follows me on Instagram knows that I make memes of Power Slap, and memes are a great way to get noticed, get your face out there. So when you have an opportunity, like let's say after you get slapped, to do some sort of a funny face or funny hand motion or funny pose, you should be doing that because that's something that someone like me is going to screenshot and meme. So yeah, there's just so many different factors that fall into what I like to call stage presence. But at the end of the day, the most important part of stage presence is, in fact, the reaction and recovery, because that quite literally is one of the 2 criteria that is used equally to score and judge a Power Slap match. But yeah, anyway, lots of stuff coming soon. I've been real busy lately and fell ass backwards into a sneaky weekend bender. Yeah, we're going to be back on track. We got Power Slap 10 coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm pumped. I'm going to be out there. And so, yeah, lots of content coming. Honestly, I'm considering not even doing like my pre-fight breakdowns because last time I was legitimately telling dudes how to win the fight. I mean, surprisingly enough to me, a lot of these people are watching the breakdown. So, yeah, I want to do them, but I'm just not sure if I'm going to have some sort of action on there, whether or not I want to tell the person that I'm betting against how to win the fight. So TBD on that. We'll see. Thanks for the support. Sorry for the delay in posts. That's going to get rectified here soon. And yeah, hope everyone has a blessed day.